Good afternoon, everyone. How are we all doing? Everyone had some coffee? Everyone feeling ready for the second half of the first day? Good stuff, good stuff. Okay, so on to the second part of the program, and we're going to touch on photography. I think photographs are the ultimate example in many ways of things that we want to share. They have a special place in our hearts. They're the type of thing which we just want to share with each other, both on the internet and with our families, etc. Smartphones and Instagram and things like that have really democratized and made accessible photography for everyone. But at the same time, higher-end photography, the type of photography that we all appreciate, the type of photography that this gentleman in front of me is doing right now, these are all things which I think we're also holding dear as we realize that that democratization doesn't give us everything that we want. I first met Chris Chabot when he was working on the OpenSocial project, which I was also working on when he was at Google. And he's taken a number of the things that he's learned from that project and his own passion for both the sharing economy and for photography itself, and actually put together a marketplace for professional photographers and people who wish to buy and use their services. So please, would you welcome on stage Chris Chabot, who's going to talk about his startup, Snapstation. Please welcome him on stage.
Thank you, Ben. Well, hello, everyone. I'm Chris Chabot, and I think that Ben already did an amazing job of introducing me. I'll still try to duplicate it a little bit. So I'm Chris Chabot. I used to work for Google for about 5 years. I've always worked in the social space, and connecting people through technology has always been my large passion in life. And I've been really excited about a lot of product launches in the time that I've been doing this. But I'm the most excited about this because we get to solve a real problem together. And it's always when you start solving real problems in society that you know that you're going to make a change, you're going to make a difference in life, right? So those are good days. It definitely is for me. So to get started, if we can go to the slide. So Snapsation is the place where photographers find people, and people who need photographers can find them. That's a pretty interesting statement, especially when you consider that a lot of people would actually say that photography as a profession is dead. Now, that's going to be a shocker. I'm sure there's going to be a few people who are going to be really upset with me that I start with this slide, but I think that what people are trying to say that when they say that photography is dead is that it's a $9 billion market in the US that's shrinking 4% year over year. Now, that's not a sign of a really healthy market, right? So there's definitely some changes happening there. And if we take a look at what's happening there, and I think that's one of those situations where we've seen the movie before. The movie that we've seen before is that there's this amazing solution to a problem that doesn't exist anymore. An example that happened recently is that newspapers used to be the best way of getting information from one place to another place at speed and at scale to entire population. Of course, with the internet, that's not necessarily always the fastest and most economical way anymore. So photography is a little bit like that, where the problem was that there was not a lot of people who had devices that could take amazing photos. And there were many fewer still who knew how to use those devices well. So today, that's not necessarily true anymore. If you go to a random person here in the audience and you ask, like, hey, what camera do they have? They will probably tell you, well, I've installed this and this application on my phone. It's a completely different marketplace. It's a completely different reality. At the same time, photography is more alive than ever because everybody has a camera now. Everybody's taking pictures now. Everybody's sharing with each other. And if you look at the amount of photos that are being shared online, and the numbers are just staggering, and we're just at the beginning of this. I mean, at the end of this short presentation, more than 3 million photos will have been uploaded to Facebook. That's a big number. That just blows my mind. So there's something really interesting happening here in the photographic space, and I think one of the reasons why we're gravitating so much towards photography is that as a society, we're moving to a place where there's so much information flowing through our lives, through social networks, through mobile devices, and all that kind of jazz, that our brains are having a really hard time keeping up with all this information that's bombarding us. So what happens is that every bit of information only gets a smaller and smaller and smaller bit of time, a smaller bit of attention. So a wealth of information is causing a poverty of attention. So what do? Well, we tend to route around problems. So, of course, we know a really effective way of communicating, and that's through images. As the saying goes, a picture says more than 1,000 words, and that's because of our brains. Our brains are made to look at somebody's face and instantly understand what they're feeling. We instantly know what they're trying to say. We instantly connect with them. We understand the situation they're in. And that story of more than 1,000 words isn't just told through that one look, it's told in a fraction of a second as well, making it an extremely powerful communication medium in a society where the attention is the scarce resource. So that's a magical way for people to connect and share with each other, right? And so it's really fitting that photography comes from the Greek photos, which is light, and graphos, which is writing. So photography is writing with light writing. So people who use photography are visual storytellers, right? And that's a pretty powerful concept, telling stories through visual mediums. So of course, the people that are born in this day and age, let's say 18 and younger, the world has always been this way for them. There's always been this much information flowing around. So they've adjusted to it in ways that we can't even dream of adjusting to this information flow. And one of the things that fascinates me endlessly is, for instance, if you look at Instagram, IM here in Europe as well, and nowadays even Snapchat, people are communicating with images. They're not sending text messages anymore. That's kind of seen as dull and boring. Instead, when they're angry, they take out their phone and they go, and they take a picture of the angry face, they put a caption on it, and they send it to their friends, and everybody instantly knows what's going on. So it's a much richer communication form. And that effect is slowly permeating and trickling through society. So as a society, we're becoming more and more visual. Visual was already a powerful communication tool. But as time is progressing, people are growing up learning how to read and write images, and that's a completely new situation. So that's a powerful movement that's really going to change the way that we communicate with each other. So if you have a business, if you have a restaurant and you want to attract people to come to your restaurant, of course you need beautiful photos of your food to attract people, because nobody's going to read the text on your website anymore. Nobody's got time for the brochure. If you have a dating profile on a website and you want to get a lot of responses there, well, having a professional dating profile photo will give you like 10 or 20 more responses every week. The impact of using strong visual imagery is incredible. Now, if you have an Airbnb listing and you have professional photos of the place that you're renting out, you're going to see more traffic as well. If you have a car for sale, there's all these situations in our life where having strong visual storytelling can really make us more successful in the things that we're trying to do. So as a society, we need our visual storytellers more than ever. Photography is increasing in importance and not decreasing. And yet, ironically, finding photographers is really difficult. So what happens with a lot of creatives, and I'm sure you may be guilty of this as well in your own hobbies, and I know that I have been as well. I'm a software engineer, I'm a photographer. We love talking in our own jargon, in our own language, right? And photographers, they use language that involves millimeters and f-stops and depth of fields and ISOs, and that's how they communicate with their customers as well. They say, well, I use a 50mm lens at a f1.2 to get a really sharp depth of field, so I can really take a nice fine art portrait photo. And most people go, I'm sorry, do you speak English? I have no idea what you just told me. It's like you're going to a doctor and the doctor's talking to you in Latin. You go, we have a failure to communicate here, we're not connecting. So that makes finding a photographer difficult, that there's no common language between the photographer and the customer. They also build websites using technologies that don't even work on mobile phones. They don't necessarily work on tablets. There are no social signals there that would give you trust. They don't even list pricing, because back in the day when they started building this business model, business was done over fax machines, right? So you send each other purchase orders, and that's how you communicated with each other. So everything about finding a photographer today is incredibly difficult. And there was this beautiful MacLab research that looked into like what makes a really successful landing page in a website. And I got a real math formula on the screen there, but the oversimplification is that conversion is motivation minus friction. And simply put, that means that the amount of stuff you're going to sell is how badly people want your awesome stuff, and you subtract how difficult it is to get to that awesome stuff. That makes sense on a logical level, right? And that's true for pretty much any kind of marketplace. There's a demand for awesome stuff, and there's a difficulty, the amount of hurdles of getting to the awesome stuff, and that leads to an end result. Well, photography is a market where the amount of friction to get to the awesome stuff is incredibly high. So that's what we're trying to solve on the one hand. The ironic thing that on the other hand, there's all these hundreds of photographers, thousands of photographers, millions of photographers everywhere who are incredibly passionate about photography. This was a photo walk a little while ago in San Francisco where 500 people showed up, they got together, they shared their passion for photography, they took some pictures with each other, of each other, they socialized just to share in this passion. And it makes sense that there's these many passionate photographers, because it's one of those things that once you start picking up a camera, and I'm sure the photographer here will agree, you start looking at the world in a different way. You start going, I never really recognized that pattern over there, but it's kind of beautiful. And that beautiful blue hour in the sunset, you get really enthusiastic about these things that you've never noticed before. So as you're getting into photography, it becomes incredibly addictive, and you get more into photography. And as the people are getting more and more into photography, they would love to make some extra money to buy the next bit of gear, because everybody loves their toys and the upgrades, right? They would also maybe even make it a bigger part in their life and make it a part-time job or a full-time job. So a lot of these people and a lot of my friends and a lot of all the photographers out there would like to do more with photography, but they don't know how to find customers. Because marketing is kind of difficult, and stepping up to someone and saying, hey, I'm willing to provide you a service, but I'm going to charge you $100 for it, that's difficult if you're not used to doing sales. And especially creatives, they're not always the most fond of those kind of conversations, right? So on the one hand, there's all these people who need photographers when they have a small business, when they have an Airbnb listing, when they have a LinkedIn profile and they want to apply for the next job. On the other hand, there's all these photographers who want to provide this service, but they have a really difficult time finding each other. Well, that is exactly what Snapsation is. Snapsation is where people who need photographers and photographers who are looking for people can meet. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to show a little bit of a demo of how this works. So here we go, if we can go back to the computer again. So this is the homepage, and if you remember, one of the large difficulties for people who are looking into photography is that they have no idea of what's available around them. They don't speak the language. They would never know about macro photography or fine art photography or any of these technical terms, right? They just want to have pretty pictures of stuff and they're willing to pay for it. So we need to solve the problem of discovery, where people don't have the vocabulary to know what to ask for, but if they see something, they know that they like it. So the first thing you get when you open the application, and this experience is the same, whether you're using a phone or a tablet or a PC, it's all the same experience. You get a list of all the offers that are available to you. And offers are photographers who are saying, well, I've got these services that I'm willing to offer. And this is the price tag for it, and this is an example of exactly what you're going to get. So in this case, I'm looking in San Francisco because that's where we have the most beta testers at the moment, so we're going to get the most beautiful information laid out on the screen. So say that I'm interested in buying something, and I'm browsing through the list, and I get inspired, and I see this offer for pet photography. I kind of like the look of that dog here. I think that's pretty awesome. I've got cats myself, so say that I'm super interested in this. I click through and I see that Chris has got a lot of really awesome photos of pets here. I mean, just look at that. Isn't that a gorgeous image? It totally makes me fall in love with it. That's just adorable. So say that I'm really interested in that, but I want to know for sure that I actually trust this person. Like, trust is kind of one of the major currencies in this new sharing economy. So I can click through, I can go to their profile, I've got links to their social profile, I can see their self-description, I can see what other offers they have, so I can get a view of their total body of work and see what they're good at. There's reviews, of course, and there are people who've added her to favorites. Well, at this point, I'm getting pretty convinced that there's so many people enthusiastic about her work that I'm interested in buying this, right? So I'm going to go to her profile, I'm going to place an order. And again, we're going to make this as simple, as low friction as possible, because friction leads to less sales. So I'm going to say, hey, Of course, normally I will type a little bit more, but I'm sure that people in the audience appreciate me keeping this relatively short. The other thing that I've done to prep for this demo, that I did enter my credit card information ahead of time, because I didn't want to do that on the public screen. I'm sure you understand. So the next step is that everything needs to be as low friction as possible. So when you get to this situation, you've just placed an order, what you have is a basic chat system. And what the photographer sees on the other end is a conversation with a price tag attached to it. So it's super simple, it's super low friction. This is about as simple as we can make it. If you know how to use your phone to send people text messages, then you know how to use this system. So that's a pretty powerful thing, right? The other thing that we have, of course, is if you're a photographer, you go into the settings, and there's this big button here that says, hey, do you want to start making money doing the stuff that you love doing? So when you enable that, there's a couple of extra things that we need to know about you, like how do we send you money, and how do you explain to your customers who you are? And once you've got that set up, you get this magic new menu option that says, well, what are my offers? And your offers, as I explained before, these are the things that you can tell your customers. This is what your creative spirit wants you to do. This is what you're passionate about. This is what you can finally sell your customers, right? And the wonderful thing is that earlier today, I don't know if you've seen Joe from Airbnb, but he was talking about his early experience when he did his first trial run with South by Southwest in Austin. And he noticed that as soon as people started exchanging money, the whole experience kind of sours. It's a different conversation, because I get to be your friend when we're not talking about money, but when we are talking about money, suddenly it becomes a business transaction, and that changes the tone of the entire conversation. So the nice thing here is that you describe what you're doing, you describe how much money you're going to make, you give it a price tag, you see what they're going to pay. We're in England right now, so it's going to show it in British pounds. If you're in a different country, it will show it in a different currency. So that allows you to easily make a sale, and by the time that an end user buys this and becomes your customer, there's no conversation about money anymore. There's no need for negotiation anymore, and that takes a lot of the pain out of the process. The other thing that's really painful for a lot of people who are not used to marketing is marketing yourself is really difficult. So everywhere through the system, we've got our marketing experts to write lengthy, beautiful text that tell you exactly how to prepare your offers, how to prepare your bio, and how to get customers interested in what you've got on sale. So that, in short, is the experience that is Snapsation. I'm really passionate about this because it allows us to take a step back and say there's this old way of doing things, and it doesn't necessarily connect with the expectations of the consumers today. And we get to go, well, knowing what we know today, having the tools that we have available today, the internet, social trust, easy payment systems, devices that are always on our person, that's a really powerful toolkit to build a new solution with, to say, well, if we're going to reimagine this market, what would it look like? Well, hopefully it's going to look like this. So welcome to Snapsation. I hope you enjoyed the preview, and thank you so much for your time.